A year ago, nobody had seen my work. Nobody knew who I was. I didn't do a photography degree. I did a history and politics degree. It's very different. And I just feel like I just wanted to show that a creative mind could still do that. I see things and I see beauty in everybody. I think I connect with raw emotion very easily, and I just wanted that to pour through my work. My name's Aneesa Dawoojee. I'm here for WEX and at Canon today. I am a portrait and social documentary photographer living in South London, and I'm going to share a little bit about my project and the work that I do. They say that a good project is you live and breathe it and that you become part of it. I fully believe that the transformation in my work was about me living and breathing the project, feeling it, and yeah, I didn't know I was becoming so heavily involved in the work that I was doing. The project was about regular people in the area that I'm from. It's a martial art community. I focus particularly on Muay Thai. There's some boxing in there as well, but particularly Muay Thai. So I was shooting the Muay Thai fighters, and I thought it's a beautiful sport. To me, it's a beautiful sport. There's a lot of movement in the body. You can use your elbows, your knees, so every part of your body twists and moves. It just has so much, and I feel very connected. I think how my personality is, it became my world, and I became very focused on the individuals and the people I was shooting. There was probably like a turning point for my work, and it went from really quite joyous, happy shots. So there's a part of my Instagram where you'll see lots of smiles on the Muay Thai people, especially the women, because I really wanted to empower the women. And I went to photograph at the Black Lives Matter protests in London, and for me there was a lot of upset, having to explain things to my children about life, society, the world they're about to enter, how to protect themselves, when to hold back a bit, when to give. These are difficult conversations for any parent to have, but my end game is that they don't ever judge people. And so I spoke to one of my mentors, and she said, why don't you document your pain? Why don't you document what's going on for you? And I didn't quite get what she meant initially, and I just thought, how do I photograph that? I've already photographed the demonstrations. I don't know what that looks like. But then as I spoke to each of my subjects and was shooting, like, emotions are there, and you can see they've all got a story, and they're all connecting and relating in different ways. It didn't matter what colour they were, they all know somebody who went through something, and then those connections is what pieced those 20 images together. I had to find synergy in all 20 images, and it was, I think the common ground that we all spoke about was society and social impact. We listened to like grime music from local artists, and that kind of created a mood as well, and how the visuals came across. For some of my subjects, it was therapeutic for them. Some of them shared some very, very personal things, which I feel honoured that they felt that they could share that with me, and they were very open as well and willing to share to the public. That's massive. Like, I'm just a photographer, but they gave me a piece of them, which for me is unreal. I didn't expect that. The platform that I give my work to, or that I share my work to, it really matters, because I just want them to handle it with the sensitivity, the care, the dignity that it deserves. Because for me, they're just good people, and should be celebrated as such. I don't want any stereotype or label associated with any work that I take. I did a talk at a university, and one of the students said to me, I felt quite emotional, and they said, oh, is this a self-portrait or a self-reflection of you? And I'm sitting there looking at these pictures, and I'm like, God, I can identify with every one of those emotions in their faces and their eyes. And I thought, that's exactly what it is. And I've done what the lady told me to do, and it's come through. But then selecting those final pictures, that was another ball game. That was like hours and hours, days and days, and showing it to loads of people, saying, what do you see? What do you see? Do you see a message? Do you see my statement? Do you see what I'm trying to say? And until I got that as perfect as I could, then I was like content that I'd done the piece of work justice. The difference between shooting and partaking is big, but not big, if that makes sense. I think the benefit I have, I think, when I am shooting is that I can anticipate things. So sometimes, I guess, if someone is grabbing at someone's neck, I know that a knee's coming, and I know that I can cue certain things, which maybe if I hadn't been so familiar with it, I wouldn't see that. And then additionally, I kind of know how much it means to them. I know how much a win means. I know how much just a small gain of being able to kick properly is like a big win. I observe, I read the room, I read people, I read what people, how they're interacting, and I just think that they're the skills I bring. So all the skills I learned many years ago when I worked at the other homeless charity, did a lot on human interaction, and I just think that really helped me. I think as well, you find photographers that do that when they know something very well, they naturally pick up on it and can create and shoot very different things because they know something so well. That whole thing of living and breathing I think it paid off with the work that I produced at the end. I think artists are my biggest influences, and I cited Frida Kahlo only because I always, when I was younger, I used to like bowl around and try and do everything that a man could do, and obviously I can't do it. I'm tiny, and that's not physically possible. But she was so strong and resilient and powerful. She didn't do the whole graceful pose thing in her portraits. They just stood out like as a real strong woman. She still had like the curves in her hands and all of those sort of things, but there was something quite special and unique about her, which made me think females are very strong, and why are we not shown like that a little bit more? I like that. I'd like to be like standing quite strong and looking quite powerful. I'd like that about myself. And so that, again, Muay Thai fits that narrative really nicely because of the wraps and what they're wearing, it works. But even now, I would try and bring that into clothed shoots where it's just a regular shoot. I would like to see my women standing powerful and just like as they feel comfortable, not so scripted. I don't want to. It's helped me realise how I want to shoot going forward. Even as well, there are some pictures you might notice. The subject's breathing out, so there's no consciousness of bringing in the torso and sort of like trying to be something they're not. They've breathed out and they're comfortable, and I related that to like the work of Cézanne and how natural the body forms were as they fall and stuff. I like that. So there's little things like that stay in my mind. And Edward Monk, like he had all those emotions. Like there was images that are not in my work, which I photographed that represent all the emotions that I kind of have shot, like melancholy, despair, even like the scream. I've got a guy like holding his hands and screaming. For me, I just remember when I used to do go to like little art trips at school, and I used to like looking at stuff like that. It just always stood out to me, and I thought I would spend longer looking at an image like that and thinking, oh, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, obviously that's a painting. He's had time to think, but he's done it really well, and it's believable. And so I guess it's that believability and the realisticness of it. Because yes, my images are slightly scripted to a degree because we're in a studio setting, but they are natural and they're being natural. I didn't want it to be overposed because then it becomes something different. I still really had artists flying around my head as opposed to photographers. The photographers, yes, for the lighting, but in terms of story and pose, then I definitely think the artists heavily influence the way I think. So it's just a really simple setup. I chose to have a studio in my home because I initially started newborn work when I first started out, but it made sense to have everything here. But also I just couldn't afford the rents in London, so I worked. This is my studio space, and it works for what I do. A lot of people think that the work I produce is shot somewhere more fancy, but it's really not. So let me tell you a bit about what I've got. I've got mainly 2 lights that I work with, and then everything else is reflectors. Sometimes I might add a white sheet or an ice light if I need a lot more power. But yeah, so I just add lights as and where I feel necessary. This is a backdrop that I use from Unique Backdrops. I had that sent over only because I just really like what they've got. This one isn't that expensive either, that light, but my Elinchrom, I wanted to invest more in my key light. So, because that's the light I use for everything. I thought I upgraded it just a little while ago. So again, before that I had a really not so expensive softbox, but it did the job. I think the way I see photography and the tools I use, they are my tools. Everything else is what I create. So they are a massive part, but if I can't afford something, I'm not going to kill myself buying something if I can still produce the images that I'm able to. And then what else have I got? Oh, my benches. So these come in really handy for all my shoots. It's so boring when it's all just standing up. Sometimes I want my subjects to be seated, or I want them to be straddles or doing different things. So I source these from an antiques guy down the road. I try and keep everything with local businesses as much as I can. I'm one of those people that likes to support local businesses. And so then I've got like a step ladder that's from Ardingly Antiques Fair, which I like visiting. I think actually a lot of what you'll see, I just pick up in charity shops and antiques places, just whatever my eye's drawn to, or if I see a nice texture, and then I can sort of visualize it with the subjects and how it might look with them. So kind of just keeping the textures consistent. So I think that's the main thing I have in mind. Even some of the props for like the children's shoots that I do, I make them myself, and I find textures that I think are beautiful, classic, that goes with a lot of people's interiors often are whites or greys. I think about what complements that. So the artwork produced then complements what the interior looks like once you've had it framed and finished. And then my reflector is probably one of the most important things that I use. I don't think, sometimes people don't use them as often as they should maybe, I don't know, but like that comes into play a lot. So for me, because I photograph every type of skin tone, so very, very light colours through to very dark colours, the reflector is really, really good to fill the shadows that get lost, particularly behind the neck, sometimes in people's beards and their hair. So my hair colour is really, really dark. Underneath, the light can get lost and you lose detail. So I try not to lose my detail in the shadows, which is why I have extra reflectors and fill lights just to make sure that the details and the highlights are nicely balanced. So it's just balancing all those things, but it is a really simple sort of setup of lighting that can just be tweaked for each subject. When I'm on location, I keep it as minimal as I can again. So like ideally to one camera bag full of stuff that I know I'll use. And then again, like maybe a reflector and one other light. I do have another big light for outdoor work with a high sync, which I use quite regularly. That's good for sport work as well. I'm using a Canon 5D Mark III, which I need to upgrade. But to be honest, like if it's not broke, don't fix it type thing. I know my camera really well. I've been using this for years and I just feel so comfortable with it. For me, I think at some point I'm just going to go mirrorless just because of the weight. But I do love this, and knowing my camera really well and knowing that it will produce the shots that I've been able to produce really, really is kind of all that matters to me. So yeah, this is my go-to for everything, and I just feel a little bit scared to get an upgrade just yet, only because I know this so well and I think, oh, what if it takes me more time to learn a new camera? So that's the only reason. And like I say, it's not broken, so I'm kind of quite happy with it. And yeah, my lens is just a 24-70, but I often change that when there's a 70-200 Canon one that I use that I love. So if I'm doing a shoot like this, I'll just run quite back there and get some phenomenal portraits. That I just love that lens as well. So I kind of interchange. It just depends what my subject's doing. But yeah, I want to get as much of the background as possible and just have the option to crop. So yeah, tend not to go too tight. And then it gives me more flexibility in post should I need it. And then yeah, if I get it right in camera, I don't need to edit too much in post. If I was to support any young person moving forward in their photography journey, I would say don't be disheartened. There's so many like twists and turns, and I think finding your genre can take years. And like for someone like me, I combined my genres. So people used to say that art and social statements couldn't go hand in hand, but I think you can work around that. So like anything is possible to create, and if you've got the basics like a phone or a very simple camera, it doesn't mean you can't learn the art of good composition, putting groups together, trying out different things, angles. I think what I learned from my earlier days is that you shouldn't have like poles sticking out of people's heads and like just basic composition things. You just keep shooting and trying to get it right in camera, because whilst there's so many tutorials and stuff and work on post and how you can manipulate an image with effects and filters and all of that, you can actually still create stunning and phenomenal images straight off camera where you're not spending hours and hours in post, which I think is really important. But I would say don't give up. There is support out there. There are photographers like myself and others. So for example, I live in South London, Streatham Festival. We're running a photography workshop in October. So there are things that it draws the community and young people to just try and give it a go and talk to professionals and see what's out there. So yeah, and we are easy to contact. So if people have questions, I'm always open like to message on my Instagram. I'm not one of those photographers that doesn't speak to people. I like talking. So yeah, that would be my advice, is just keep shooting and find what you love. But if your art doesn't fit somebody else's version of art, that doesn't make it wrong. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here now being able to share a little bit of my story. So I think it's important to just follow your heart and believe in whatever it is that you're photographing there. So that draws my talk to a bit of a close. Don't forget, Wex are covering more women in photography, doing more talks on changing the image, trying to show that there are different types of photographers doing different things out there. Not one shoe doesn't fit all, so it's okay to be a bit different. And yeah, those talks are coming up in the week.